Good morning, I am Kevin Price. Delighted to be with you. I'm going to spend some time talking to you about you and your business. As always, delighted to have Paul Carroll on our program. He's a regular contributor on The Price of Business. He brings phenomenal content, interesting stories, ideas, and much more to the program. And he's got a fascinating firm that I love what you guys do over there at Efficient Wealth Management. By the way, that's efficientwealthmanagement.com. Tell us a little bit about Efficient Wealth Management, and then introduce us to your guest today.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for that introduction. Efficient Wealth Management is a boutique wealth management firm based here in the Woodlands, Texas. And using a consultative approach, working with a team of experts, we help our clients not only protect their wealth, but mitigate their taxes, take care of their heirs, protect their assets from being unjustly taken, and maximize the impact of charitable planning if that's important to them. Today we're introducing Damon Palermo. Damon has a company called Palermo Corporate Real Estate Advisors, and he is probably one of the most informed advisors in the commercial real estate market here in the Woodlands, Texas. He goes way back to the old Mitchell organizations and the Woodlands organization. So he's got a great story, and I'm very glad to have him here on the radio today.
Well, welcome to the program, and that is a great introduction. Kind of give us a panoramic overview of what Palermo is all about.
Well, thank you very much for having me today. Our firm is truly, I say, Paul, to borrow a term that he used in describing his company, we're a boutique advisor, but focused singularly on corporate real estate for clients, big and small, in and around the North Corridor of Houston. And we've seen a lot of changes throughout the years and tried to bring forth the benefit of 22 years in this market. Seen a number of the ups and downs, and right now it's an interesting time to be in the business, but fortunate to be here with you all.
Well, we're glad to have you. Paul?
Well, thank you for coming today. And, a lot's happened. The price of oil collapsed towards the end of last year. How has that impacted the real estate market, both in Houston and more particularly here in the Woodlands? I mean, we see the Hughes complex going up, and all of a sudden it's not filling up as fast as it was.
Paul, it's a great question. And what's interesting about this is the trend line. There have been a number of studies that have marked and studied the correlation of oil prices and office space demand, despite the fact that we'd like to feel that Houston is very diversified. There's no doubt that there's medical professional, and the Texas Medical Center brings an element, in NASA and other engineering concentrations. But in large part, we were still very much focused on energy. And I think what you're finding now, both downtown and certainly on the west side of the energy corridor, and not the least of which in the Woodlands, you've seen those markets have to enforce themselves to self-adjust, given the current landscape of demand and the ease of demand for office space. So here there's a little bit of a different element because you've got the exogenous shock of Exxon, and I know it's overused and everybody relies on it as a talking point, but the fact is it's difficult to isolate that one variable and say, despite a global reduction in the price of oil, that the Woodlands is buffered, the North Corridor is buffered in large part by the Exxon presence, but you're starting to see the sideways movement, and there are gaps. There's no element that's more destructive to a supply-demand curve than new construction. And over the last year, pumped up over $100 per barrel oil, and the propensity to project a straight line in terms of an expectation that it'll be $100 forever. There were a number of ill-conceived or less conceived office product developments that were kicked off that have now found themselves really nervous in the current landscape for demand.
Yeah, that's interesting. By the way, I do want to mention the website is easy to find at Palermo, CREA. That's PALERMO, CREA.com. Go ahead. Next question, Paul.
Yeah, that's a great review of everything that's going on here. Is this a good time to be actually investing in commercial real estate? I mean, is there blood in the street? Should people be thinking about the recovery?
Well, Paul, that anecdotally, investors, both institutional down to individual investors, read the paper, they get these general sense, they know where oil prices are, and they feel, at least in the northern corridor, that now's the time to strike. The reality is, there's been some struggle in terms of pricing. You find a level of, and I don't mean to throw out too many of the economic terms, but I mean the reality is that there's an inelastic demand for real estate, commercial real estate, in and around the Woodlands and North Corridor in Houston, from Greens Point up, and that's a part of a secular demand model there. If it were cyclical, sure, there might be some easing, and you will find some investors or developers who over-leveraged and are in need of disposing of assets, but few and far between. There's a lot of capital that's chasing product these days, and that's one of the reasons that's propped up these property values, because there's a lot of money chasing them, and it's difficult to get in and justify an entry point on an acquisition of a piece of commercial property that you can feel comfortable with. We're talking about retail centers and pad sites with a 5 or 6% cap rate. You look at inflation overall, you might consider it still an inflation hedge, but the influx of capital overall, coupled with the fact that there's a structural level of demand for this product out here, keeps the prices buoyed up. And you will find those that are on the fringe, and there may be some opportunities to capitalize on, but they're not. It's not blood in the streets, to answer your question.
Yeah, and of course, I'm reading now that oil has actually gone up almost $20 in the last 30 or 40 days. So I guess there's a little more breathing room happening now. Why don't you wrap it up, Paul Carroll, with the final thoughts of the minute or so we have left?
No, that's really fascinating. I'm in the process of moving to a new office. In fact, Damon's been helping me with that project. He's a wonderful resource for this type of work. Has forgotten more about commercial real estate than I'll ever know. It has been interesting, though, when we were negotiating after the crash of the oil price, we got negotiation power on the details, but we didn't get negotiation power on the price. So it is a fairly strong market, even in this downturn.
That's interesting. All right. And by the way, you can reach Paul Carroll at efficientwealthmanagement.com. Thanks to both of you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, though, that the content here shows up over there at usdatareview.com. And you're listening to The Price of Business.